Oh, oh, okay. Wow. All right, folks, here we are in finals week. Finals week. Let's make sure that we are loaded. Are we working here, folks? Are you looking for it? I really want to make sure that this is working without it. Okay, there we go. All right, folks. Wow. So we had a couple days off, and now we're back to class. And this is very important that we get everything going because we got a lot of ground to cover. So we are revisiting our Vietnam picture, Vietnam Dom. Okay, so back to Vietnam Dom, Vietnam Dom. There we go. Okay, so in our last scene when we were covering Vietnam Dom, we had Zachary McComb as our hero. Coming in as a tourist, though, right? And he comes into the bar and he doesn't know what's going on. And unfortunately, the next scene was going to be one of the most powerful scenes of the film, which was the scene of Gus, right? Our anti-hero, our comedic relief, if you will. But that scene did not get printed for whatever reason. So we're going to have to just kind of skip that scene. Which, honestly, that will probably work out because that scene is very important, and so maybe it just deserves its own class. Very much as this scene deserves its own class. So here we go. We're going to jump right into it. Vietnam Dom, Scene 3. So this takes place with Zach, right after, Gus meets Zach. Okay, that's what's going on. We're going to have to... Let's see. We got this one, and we got this one. Okay. Sure. Yep. No. Take your time. We're not in grade school. You don't have to tell me. You do what you got to do. We're just glad you made the class.
Thank you.
Sincerely, not everybody makes it this far into this film lecture series of how to write a script. Folks, this is such a powerful script, by the way, as far as the more fictional projects of ours go. So that's very good and all of that. So here we go, Vietnam Dom. Now this is our actress, playwright, multi-talented, wonderful woman. Lauren will be playing this scene, and so she's going to very much appreciate today's class, and so will our Zoom folks. There we go. So are all of our Zoom folks, because not everyone likes the in-person class. They want to go for the Zoom. And a lot of people use that format because of COVID. So, hey, we provide it. And excuse me, I've got my little Dr. Pepper here because, I got a lot of ground to cover, folks. So, it's going to keep me going. So this is scene 3, right? As I said, it takes place right after Zach meets Gus in the bar. And so from the bar, we are now going to be introduced to Lauren Lee, right, our dominatrix. She is very much, we can hit the door for you. Here you go. Yeah, not every door is unlocked. They lock this one, but they keep that one unlocked, or they lock this one. You just never know. You just never know, folks. You never know. Whatever door opens, another door closes. And whatever door closes, another door opens. I tell you, these microphones, they have a mind of their own, just like the locked doors. Okay, there we go. Let's see if we can get this. It's always hard finding the placement of these lapels. Lapel me away from the mic, I like the classrooms with the handheld mic, so I don't have to, because they're louder. And, I have a problem with the volume in a lot of my classes that folks can't hear me. And this microphone itself is kind of muffled. So I'm going to have to go even louder if I'm going to be heard today. So, this is our scene. Lauren Lee enters in. Okay, entering in the makeshift military compound. Okay, it's the daytime. Remember, this is 1968. And there's blinding daylight. The kind that flattens everything. Now, let me go ahead and show you a picture of Lauren. Here's what Lauren looks like. Because some of my students wanted to know what she looked like, so we put two pictures here. One you might be able to see better than the other, I don't know. The printing didn't do so well, it kind of blurred her face out, unfortunately. But you get the gist of what she looks like, and so visualize that as I read the rest of the picture. So, blinding daylight, the kind that flattens everything. There's heat rising off the ground and a visible distortion waves, right? So you're seeing the heat waves and everything. The air feels thick, almost unmoving. A clearing carved into the edge of jungle brush. Dry earth packed down and reused. This is not temporary space. This has been held, right? Very intentional. So for this scene here, it's going to be a wide shot of the compound perimeter. We're going to have wooden posts kind of unevenly spread, spaced out. Barbed wire is going to be strung between them, some sagging, some tightening, cloth strips tied into the wire, faded reds, and dirt-stained whites, and another crooked sign, kind of like we saw in the Sea Dragon book, another crooked sign, except this one says no entry. And we hold that in a little longer than comfortable. We let the audience really sit in that heat, is what we're trying to do. All right, and so, one of the first things we see in this scene is we see guards. We see kind of a medium shot, if you will. Two guards at the entrance, still, not relaxed, not aggressive, just neutral control. Hands resting on the rifles that they're holding, not gripping, but resting. Eyes are scanning slowly, right? Because they're guarding. They're puppy guarding. You ever play flag football? You puppy guard. You get in trouble if you puppy guard. You don't want a puppy guard in that kind of game. These guys are puppy guarding. Okay? They're not bored, they're just present. And then it's going to cut to the training area. So we're really showing you the whole compound, basically, here. And then next is the training ground. And there's a small group of soldiers drilling. No commands being spoken yet, but they're all moving in synchronicity. Step, turn, pause, up, step, turn, pause, up. Again, right? One soldier is slightly off, and you hear one of the superior, right? One of the lead guys, right? The lieutenants or whatever, the generals. And he doesn't necessarily yell at the one who's slightly off. He doesn't react outwardly. He just writes something in his notebook, right? He writes it down. And the soldier instantly, jumps into position, okay? This is already establishing, excuse me, Lauren's system. Lauren's system of control without noise and the correction without emotion, right? So that's very much how she controls and is commanding. And that's, we're already setting that up for this scene. And so the next is going to be now the command tent, right? And the temperature is dropping slightly, but the pressure of the scene is increasing. So we've got soft filtered light through canvas. No pun intended. Not that kind of canvas, but the canvas of a tent. Uneven, right? Organic, it's just kind of folded around. Dust particles are suspended in the air, and it's visible. It's just visible. It's it's just, you can't miss it. It's right there in the view. you know. So, you know, we're going to have a slow pan of that, and then the camera's going to slowly push in into a center frame into the chair, right? And so now we are introduced to the chair. Quotations, the chair, end quotation. Wood bolted to the ground. It's not for comfort. It's not for long-term use. It's for containment. It's very much a torture chair. You can almost tell right away. And so, boom. Now we see the prisoner. Okay, young, bruised, his lip is split, dried blood cracked at the edges, sweet runs from the temple to the jaw, drips, his breathing is uneven, right? So this guy, he's real beat up and his breathing's really fast. And, you know, he's obviously a POW. A POW in the chair. You know, he's trying to slow down his breathing and he fails. And he's trying to perform strength as a soldier. He's taught to, but his body is, you know, is failing. His body is giving up at this point. He's been captured. He's tired. You know, and folks, torture in Vietnam was very much not a pretty sight. Not a pretty sight. Let's just say that. So it makes sense that he would be weak at this very moment. Very obvious. So now we have two guards behind him. Perfect posture, no shifting weight, no glancing around or anything. You know, they are not watching him, but they are holding the perimeter. They're holding the space. And then there's some silence, right? They're sitting there in puppy garden, silence, and then boom, you hear some boots. Right? You hear some big boots coming in. And boom, Lauren's entrance. Footsteps slow, and here she is, folks. There is our wonderful Lauren Lee dominatrix. Woo! Ow! Wowee! Look at that. So you can tell. I mean, look at this. She is a tough cookie. You wouldn't want to mess with her. You wouldn't want to mess with her. Look, I mean, look at that. So she comes walking in, okay? And she walks in even, measured, almost as if it was choreographed. Each step she takes, it lands fully, no dragging, no hesitation. She's walking in confident, and the light slowly bleeding in, and her silhouette appears before she enters, right? Showing that she does not enter a room per se, but she arrives in control. She arrives in control that she already owns. So she's already there before she gets there, you know what I mean? And that's what the whole point of showing the compound is showing her the power dynamic here. So she steps in, she doesn't pause, she doesn't scan, she doesn't adjust, she already knows, you know, who's here, what's happened. Kind of like Darth Vader, right? He always comes onto the scene and he knows exactly what's going on. He knows exactly what's going on. He doesn't need any details. And so yeah, she's got her fitted military uniform, and there's dark tones as the lighting goes, there's clean lines, the belt, tight belt at the waist. And her boots are polished. We don't have that in the photo, but it doesn't matter. We don't need that. She's tight, you know, her hair is tight, structured, very controlled. And so she's walking forward, everything else around her kind of softens slightly, and the focus is on her, right? The whole background kind of bleeds behind her as far as this tracking shot goes. And so then we see the environment's reaction, right? So the guards straighten up barely, because they barely have enough time, and it's barely noticeable because it's so automatic. She's got them so under control that they are ready for her to listen to her. She's the commander, okay? And no one acknowledges her verbally. They don't dare. You know, this is military. You don't verbally, you know, acknowledge, especially an untamed militia like hers. Oh my goodness. there's not really room for formality. There's only room for submission, because that's very much how she is. So the environment, therefore, adjusts itself. So that takes us to our first standoff, right? She stops right in front of the prisoner, and the distance is just right outside of her reach, but she's pretty close to the prisoner sitting in this chair. And it's real quiet, right? It's quiet. And she says, count this. 5 seconds. 7 seconds. Push it. Push it. Push it. Right? She's, showing her presence within increments of these seconds, letting the silence really beat, if you will. Beat the information she needs out of the prisoner. Or just intimidate the prisoner, rather. And wants to, what she's doing is she's letting him collapse internally. And it's very well done here. And so the prisoner looks up and regrets instantly, looks away, but it's too late. The interrogation has already started. She begins to circle him, hands behind her back. Right? Look at that. Hands behind her back. She is a bad, you don't want to mess with her. She tough. She bad though. Right? And she's controlled, she's slow, she's measured, she's got her hands behind her back, she's very, showing the power. And so we're going to orbit with her when we get the camera in there and everything. The prisoner's going to stay in center frame, and she'll become kind of the motion of that scene. And he becomes kind of just a fixed entity in the background, if you will. And then she breaks her silence. She says, "You're not trained for silence. You're not trained for silence." And she says it like it's already proven. It's not a question. It's a diagnosis. She knows better. So she continues walking. She says, "You're trained for movement, noise, reaction." She stops behind him. Close. Not touching. Right? She goes right behind him, close, not touching. And boom, he kind of flinches. She's like, "You've already reacted." And his breathing gets louder, right? Because he's intimidated. And then so now she steps in front, kind of lowers slightly to him, eye level. And now it's showing, just in this scene, right? It's this eye level shot of her looking at the prisoner, very close. And that's just showing the psychological dominance. And Lauren, is very much, very much a dominating power here. And so the first, then she asks, says, "How long have you been with Ash?" So boom, there we go. You folks that have been in this class, you already know it. Hopefully you remember that Ash Montoya is also another militia group, and so she has captured a prisoner from Ash's militia. Okay? And so she's trying to figure out what she's going to do with this little catch. Because now she has collateral against Ash and his army and everything. So she reaches in, she grabs his chin, not violent, but very precise. The finger placement is controlled. And she says, she kind of is playing with him, teasing with him. She says, you're thinking about what he would want you to say. That's not loyalty. That's fear. So that lands for the actor, the prisoner. But he refuses to show it, right? Because he's trained not to show fear, even though she called him out right away. So she releases, and then she steps away, right? And then now she turns her back to him, right? So she's turning her back to him now. And that's very intentional. She says, Ash believes this is about territory. that this is about power, control, she turns. He's wrong. Then she steps closer again to the prisoner. This is about discipline. So she's taking this prisoner to school. I'll tell you what, my goodness, I wouldn't want to be sitting in that chair. I mean, right? Don't want to be sitting in that chair. And so that line is very much like the core of her character, of course. And so the soldier, you know, he can't really say much at this point, so he just says, well, you don't know anything about him, you know. Just trying to claim that he's fighting for the right side. And she pauses, and then she smiles. Not so much out of happiness, but out of recognition. Again, another power play. She says, I know exactly what he is. She leans in slightly. He's loud, emotional, mistakes chaos for strength. You know, she kind of straightens up. Men like that burn fast. And the silence sits heavy. It's real quiet after that. Then she breaks the silence. She says, tell me where he's moving next. And the soldier says, go to hell. And she studies him longer. And then she just simply nods her head. And she says, you will. She turns and walks away. And she stops without turning. And she says, leave him, right? So the guards hesitate. And she says, he'll talk, right? Reaffirming to the guards that just, you know, leave him be for right now. It's showing that she has her absolute confidence, obviously. It's not hope, it's not strategy, right? It's certainty. And so she exits. And as soon as she leaves, the soldier's breathing again. Kind of out of control. And he's alone. Right? The guards and her have exited the scene. Oh. And so, you know, there's the silence, and the next scene is her walking into the sunlight somewhere around the compound. And everything in the compound kind of lines up with where she's walking. She's kind of walking out of that area with the chair, and she's kind of lined up, right? She's lined up with, there's weapons, and there's another cooking tent, and there's soldiers, and she just kind of perfectly lines up as a crack of sunlight just radiates around her. It'll be a really beautiful scene, I'll tell you what. But, you know, then the training in the background, right, where all those soldiers were training earlier, they start up again, right? Or we see them start up again as the audience. Step, turn, pause, step, turn, pause, perfect, right? This time they nail it. That one soldier who messed up that first time, he didn't mess up this time, I'll tell you what. And it's because she's around. And she stops and she looks towards the coastline. She looks towards the town. You know, your classic villain looking out at the place she wants to take over. Towards everything that's beyond her control at the very moment. And, you know, her face is unchanged this whole time. Right? It's just like this. She just looks like that. She doesn't show a lot of expression. Other than smiling a little bit because she knew that she had the upper hand when she was talking to the prisoner. But really that's just, it's like a snake teasing its food, right? When you give it a mouse and it messes with it before eating it. That's very much what she was doing with the prisoner. And so this scene is going to feel like it's entering her system, right? You know, we're not meeting a person that's per se. Because Lauren isn't emotional. She's not really reactive. And she's not, believe it or not, she's not performative. She's not performative. She is really symbolizing inevitability, is what she's doing. She's symbolizing inevitability. So that's what's going on with Lauren for this scene. Now, I want to make sure my Zoomers are doing okay. Let's check our Zoomers here.